Hello and welcome, fellow Wasteland survivors. I'm Dean. Thanks for stopping in, hanging out with me. We are still at Spectacle Island. It's the next day, it's first thing in the morning, and once again we get to see another beautiful sunrise. Alright, cool. Also, just in case, we do have some clear day mortars ready to go. So we should have a nice day today. Alright, well, this is part 2 of our basic introduction to logic gates. In the first video, we saw quite a bit about how 4 of the 7 logic gates work, what requirements it took for the logic gate to actually transmit power. So today's video, we're going to take that knowledge and we're going to apply it to this electrical door. Real quick, before we get started, I know this is a very popular use for logic gates, but you may have, and I'm not saying you did, you may have just watched the video, saw how to do it, or the guy explained to you how to do it, you hooked it up, flipped on the switch, it worked, and was super happy and went on about your gameplay. But did you really kind of know why and how it's working? And that's what today's demonstration is. We're going to see these logic gates in action, opening and closing this door, and we'll see why it's opening and closing the door the way that we want it to. Alright, let's get started with that. But first, I want to show you guys this real quick. If you notice this white board on the floor, the reason I'm using that one is for some reason, it's just, easier to spot. But you could really use any of these boards that are about that same width. If you take your switches, line them up to it, it gives you the exact perfect distance between your switches. So when you place them in these concrete walls, the light sticks out on one side, but nothing else does. And then on the other side, just the on and off lights stick out, and nothing else does. It's really, the perfect gapping or setting for doing that in the concrete walls. Now all you got to do is just bring your carpets over, click on them, place them on the carpets, and now we can move them. You can also do this to the power conduit, but we'll just set it on there by hand. Okay, our power conduit is connected to power. It splits off and goes to both of our switches, so now our switches are set up and ready to go. Okay, now for the use of what we're getting ready to do, the most commonly used logic gate is the XOR. It's the simplest to understand and the easiest to use for this application of opening and closing the door. But I've got a couple of demonstrations we're going to do, so we'll use it for those other demonstrations. So what I'd like to do is show that we can actually use other logic gates to achieve the same result, opening and closing the door. Let's start off with the AND logic gate. The AND logic gate, let's look at that real quick so that way we're familiar with what it does. Gosh dang it. Hurry up and get there. Okay, AND logic gate. Transmits power if all inputs have power. Well, it transmits power if both of our inputs have power. So let's see that in action. We'll connect our two inputs up, and our door is on. The reason it's on is because the AND logic gate transmits power if both power inputs are on. So the way to make the AND logic gate work for this is we'll turn the outside one off. because that's where we'll be coming into first. So, we're coming into our settlement. We've had a long, hard day of kicking super mutants' butts. We're 3 pounds underweight. We need to get indoors quickly. We can flip the switch. The door comes on. We go through. We're on the other side. We we value our privacy. We don't want to be bothered. So we'll flip the switch and the door closes. Now we can go ahead and do whatever we're going to do indoors. We're ready to leave. We've got a pocket full of caps. It's time to party and celebrate. I say we cruise down to Diamond City and pick up some of those Diamond City chicks. So we open the door, we leave, but we do have all that valuable loot in there, and we don't want nobody in there while we're gone, so we can flip the switch and the door closes. Now the reason that this worked is because we set up our switch formula or switch configuration before we started our in and out rotation. So this just shows that even though the AND does something completely different than the XOR, because we know how it works, we could use it for this same setup. Great explanation on the wide uses and variances of the different electrical things we want to power with these logic gates. Okay, next one is the NAND. We'll hook it up to the door. The NAND logic gate transmits power unless all inputs have power. Okay, so to start off with, we have to change our switch formula or configuration to match the NAND logic gate. It transmits power unless all inputs have power. So we need to put on both switches. Same scenario. We just coming into our settlement, long day. We have been I don't know what we've been doing. It doesn't matter, Bones. We've opened the door. We've come into our interior. We don't want to be bothered doing whatever it is we're doing. So we close the door and or flip the switch and the door now closes. We do our business. We're ready to leave. Flip the switch. The door opens. We go out the door. And of course, we don't want nobody in there, so we flip the switch, and now the door closes. Now, the reason this worked is because of our switch configuration. Once again, both switches on, no power being transmitted to the door. As soon as one switch goes off, it transmits power unless both inputs have power. Well, both inputs don't, so it's transmitting power. Now when we're inside, we turn off this switch. Well, we have no power at all going to the logic gate. And that's why the door closes. There's just no power there no more. Now when we're ready to leave, it's just a reversal of the process that we just did. One switch on, power to the NAND logic gate, doors open. We switch both switches on. Doesn't fit the requirements for the NAND, so it goes off. Okay, once again, a really good example of how we can, find out which one of these logic gates fit our electrical wants or needs for whatever thing that we're building or creating. Okay, now, this is another good example. I'm not going to hook the OR gate up because it won't work. And we can, how should I word this? We, just by reading the description and knowing what it is and how it transmits power, will fully understand that it won't work for us. So we don't even need to hook it up to see that it doesn't work. The AND logic gate, well, let's just go look at it or the OR logic gate transmits power if any input has power. So, Out of our 4 switch configurations, for our formulas for our switches, the OR logic gate will come on with any of them other than both switches being off. Well, if they're both off, that would have our door closed. But as soon as we switched one switch on, the door would come open. But when we've gone inside and switched this switch on or off, it's still transmitting power because the logic gate transmits power if any input has power. Well, the outside switch still has power, and the only way to get it off is to switch it off. So, therefore, the OR logic gate will not work for us. It doesn't meet what we could call it the requirements of what we need for the door to open. We need the power off, then on, then off, then on, and then off again. And we can only achieve off if both of our switches are off. That'll become pretty important here. Well, I think more in the next video. So keep that in mind. We'll be talking more about that on the next video. Okay, sorry about that. Excuse me. All right, now that we have discovered that these other logic gates can do the same thing, we just have to set up our switch configuration or formula. Let's get right to the XOR, which once again is the most commonly used logic gate for this application. It's the easiest to understand and the easiest to operate. Okay, the XOR logic gate requirements are: it needs one, hell, let's just look at it so we get the right wording. Transmits power if exactly one input has power. So that means only one of these switches at a time can work for it to transmit power. Well, both switches are on. We're not meeting or fitting that requirement, so it's not transmitting power and the door is closed. I better come out of work mode. If we turn one off, then exactly one is transmitting power. Therefore, the XOR logic gate transmits the power and the door opens. Now, once again, if you're inside, when you turn this switch off, there is no power going to the logic gate, and therefore the door closes. Once again, we want to come out. The switch comes on. It's exactly one power requires one power to transmit power, so the door's open. Now when we flip the outside switch to close the door, it has 2 powers on, and that is not exactly one power. And that's why the XOR logic gate is the most commonly used one for this application. Okay, now that's still a lot of switching, a lot of turning on and off switches. Yeah, I'm lazy. I mean, that's one thing you guys really need to know about me. I'm super lazy. Yeah, I even got my own cape. I'm super lazy. So I think we can do it a little bit easier, and we'll use these delayed off switches to do it. Now they are already programmed, and I feel bad weather coming on. So they're already programmed. Let's program them real quick, and then I'll go fire another clear day shell off, clear weather shell, whatever they're called. All right. Now our electrical switches are still connected to the generator, and we could access them here, turn them on and off. But what we're actually interested in is our delayed off switches. There are delayed off switches, there are delayed on switches, and if you have them connected to your terminal, they will be categorized in the same category. So even though they do a different thing, when you program them, it will program them all the same. So make sure if you're doing both, only connect either or of the delayed on or delayed off switches. Okay, enough of that. When we choose this, we actually have several time options that we can choose from. Now it goes up to 5, but then it instantly jumps to 10. The application that we're going to be using these for, I think 10 is way too long. I think 5 seconds is more than enough. So that's what we're going to program our delayed off switches to. Now when they come on 5 seconds later, they will turn off. Let's put our terminal back in the workbench. Now let's connect each one of these delayed off switches to the okay, you know what? All right, yeah, let's connect our switches up. Let's go get a clear weather shell in. So sorry guys, way to waste our time, weather or not. Reminds me of a joke, but I don't know if it's appropriate here. So why did I even say anything? Okay, fire away, buddy. We're back on the job. Okay, what we've done is we've connected our 2 delayed off switches to our logic gate, the XOR. Now we need to connect these to power. So the best way to do that is to put a little conduit down on the floor. Or I shouldn't say it's the best way, it's the best way for what we're doing right now. So we'll just put a conduit down here on the floor. We'll connect both our switches, delayed off switches, to it. And now we'll connect it to power. Now real quick, notice this. They've both got power, but the door's not open. The reason is because the requirements for the XOR logic gate is transmit power if exactly one input has power. Both of these had power. And is it raining again? No way. Did this not work? This is why I hate using the clear day shells, because usually immediately right after you get bad weather, and normally for me it's a rad storm. All right, get out of here, bad weather. Okay, once again, the reason it didn't come on is because both switches were on, and that doesn't fit its requirement. Okay, now since we can target these switches from the back side, we'll just do everything from out here so we can see the door opening and closing. Okay, once again, we're coming in from doing some questing, doing some leveling. We went and helped Captain Ironside over at the USS Constitution. We safely helped him down the street about a block. He gave us the broadsider. We need to get it home, get it up on display so we can enjoy it. We get home, we click on the first switch, the door opens. We now have 5 seconds to get through the door before it closes, because the delayed off switch went off. Now we're inside, we're through with the broadsider, we've got it on display. Suddenly we remember, oh, we've never fired this thing. Excuse me. We need to go shoot it. So we've got the broadsider, we've got a couple of cannonballs, we're ready to leave. We click on the switch, it opens up, 5 seconds for us to leave. And because we're in such a big hurry, we don't have to worry about the doors closing. It does it automatically. All right, now let's get these little guys into our door so we can kind of see how we can hide them a little bit. Now, a couple of things to take notice here is this looks pretty cool with just this little bit of the switch sticking out of the wall, but you won't be able to target the switch. You'd actually have to have quite a bit of it sticking out. So what I like to do is this little angled area right here where the wall goes to the door is a pretty decent little spot to put these switches. And you could adjust these in here however you wanted to so that you could target them. That's important. You've got to be able to target it to switch on, or well, to switch. It's called reset the switch, is I guess what I should say. Now, if you're familiar with any of our electrical tips and tricks videos, you've heard me mention several times that I don't like putting these electrical objects inside of one another or stacking them or whatever. But for this scenario of what we're doing, we really wouldn't ever have any problems, even though they are overlapping each other at the bottom. None of the wires are really connecting into one another. And yeah, we didn't get it in the wall far enough. And oh well, our conduit's sticking out too. Oh well, this isn't about how to hide the wires. It's about how to make this work and to see it work. All right, here we are. We're home. We're ready to go in. Click on the switch. 5 seconds to get in. And 5 seconds later, door closes. Okay, we're done. We're ready to leave. Click on the switch. Door opens. 5 seconds. And it closes. And bad weather again. You've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. Okay, well, this is what we're going to do then, ladies and gentlemen. Since I've gotten 3 bad weathers in a row, we're going to sleep and make it the next day. That way, yeah, we're not having to deal with this. So, to help us fill up the rest of the time for this video, there is a pre-recorded clip I'd like to show you real quick before we leave. The reason is because part 3 of the basic introductions to logic gates will be of us hiding this logic gate into the door, or you could even do it into a wall. We're going to hide the logic gate so we can't see it and all these wires. We're also going to connect, well, anyways, I'm not going to get all into that. But anyways, this little clip that you're getting ready to watch is extremely important because it briefly explains the tip or trick that I'll be using to put this logic gate into the wall or door so that it's being hidden. So, thank you guys very much. I appreciate you stopping in, spending your time with me. Sorry that it's been bad weather, but I look forward to seeing you on the next video, which is immediately as soon as I go get a sleep and make this better weather. So, until then, please stay safe and peace. Hello, my Wasteland friends. It's me again. Hope you're enjoying the video. Sorry it's not quite as long as I'd intended, but this does give us a great opportunity to take a little closer look at the tip or trick that we're going to be seeing in the next video. Now, as most of you may know, you can place a wall-mounted object on a non-scrappable building and use group select to pull it off of that particular wall. Now, it only works if you have a non-scrappable building or a static object, such as a tree, a rock, or a car, or something like that. But did you know that you can actually do it with the snappable wall-mounted items as well? In other words, you can group select those and pull them off the wall as well. Now, the idea that we're going to be using is based off of another idea that we use a lot. And we're going to use these couple of walls as the example. Let's say that we need this wall down on the ground, but level with that wall, or flush. Well, we all know how to do that. We just take the middle wall out. Well, let's bring the pillar over. We're not going to group select it, but we could. And we'll highlight this wall, press A, the left bumper, use the left trigger, straight down to the ground. Now, it didn't turn green because I'm looking up in the air just a little too high. If I look down a little, yeah, see, just a little, it turned green. Now, by doing that, it did offset the wall. But the thing here is the point of what we can do. So I'll let the wall go back up. And also because of doing it this way, we could now use group select to move that wall anywhere that we would like to and place it any height that we would like to. I use this a lot, and I'm sure you guys use this a lot too. Okay, now that we've seen this or recapped this idea, what the the trick that we're going to do is based off of that. So we're going to bring a wall-mounted item over, snap it to the wall. We'll bring the next wall-mounted item, and of course these will snap on the bottom, the ends, or the top. And these longer ones actually have a couple of snap points on the top. But we can actually snap it on the end. Now, because when objects are snapped together and when we highlight one and move, we can't move the other objects unless we group select them. Then we can move those other objects that it's snapped to. Well, the same thing works for these objects. Because the gun rack is snapped to the wall, when we move the wall, the gun rack goes with it, but the other one does not. And this is a great way to get something at a specific height. Then you could use group select to move it wherever you would like to move it to. Any height, even not connected or snapped to a wall, maybe like a sign or something sticking out. So anyways, that's the basis of how this idea works. Okay, since you guys have toughed this out and are still here, I love you for it. Let's do this. Let's actually show you how the tip works that we're going to see in the next video. Also, we're going to do this in a concrete wall, and I will mention that this can be done with barn walls or vanilla walls. So, as a bonus for you guys staying, I'm going to show you how it works with the barn wall. Now we're going to take one of the logic gates and we're going to place it on here. Now what I'd like you to notice is look how far up, and I've lost where I can connect. So realistically, you could actually drop this down to about right here. And then when you put this other logic gate on top of it, and they are hard to snap, please don't give me a hard time. We don't have a lot of time. Okay, why are you not snapping? If you guys have used these, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. These are pretty hard sometimes to snap on, and that's just not going to do it right there. So let's lower the wall down a little bit. That may help, and it doesn't look like it's going to. Look like it. There it goes. All right, finally, thank you. Once again, because this top logic gate is not snapped to the wall, but the bottom one is, when we move the wall, that top logic gate will stay there. Okay, now you might think to yourself, well, that's pretty high up in the air. That might not work out too good. Well, we can now use group select and a pillar, sink it down into the ground where we would like it to be at the height we would like it to be, and then we can bring it over to our wall, and you can place it, well, I don't know if I should say anywhere. Some of those little connections kind of are the inputs and outputs will hinder you a little bit, especially if it's hitting one of these little rafters. But you can place this, right up and into the wall. And you can do it at any height that you would like it to be. Now, we've got it a little farther than I anticipated it to go in, but that actually kind of looks cool with just enough of the logic gate sticking out that you can see the emblem. The whole base is covered in the back by the wall. Now, because of the way it's snapped, when we take the one wall out, the logic gate is still connected to it, but the other logic gate is left behind. Also, we could have dropped it down, used an object to group select it, and then slipped it in there as well. But now by doing it this way, there's a high probability, and I'm sorry bad weather's moving in, that's why we had to end the video already. But sometimes, if you're lucky and you've got this right, you can snap another logic gate into it. And there it went. Okay, get in there. We saw you go. We know, there it went. There it goes. So now not only do we have one logic gate in there, we can actually snap multiple logic gates in. And ladies and gentlemen, that's basically the way the tip will work in the next video. Okay, I'm sorry the weather's moved in bad. Thank you guys for stopping in, hanging out with me. I hope I see you on the next video. And just like always, until next time, peace!